Level 1, the Progena. You are 9 years old. In the next 4 minutes, your name comes off a slate while you are standing in the room. Nobody looks up. The scraping sound is very small. You own 3 things: a gray coat with another child's initials inked inside the collar, a spoon sharpened on a step, a brass tag stamped 419. You pried it off the end of your bunk last night. You wanted one object in the galaxy that had been assigned to you and not to the bed. The Schola Progenium raises the orphans of dead Imperial servants into obedient instruments, which is a generous way of saying the Imperium keeps its employees' children in stock. You are stock. You have been stock since the transport your parents were on failed to arrive. Every morning 300 of you recite the Dawn Catechism. It ends on 4 notes that fall. You hum them without meaning to. Walking, working, sleeping. Hold that detail. The hand on your collar belongs to a woman in a plain coat. She does not give a name. She walks you down a corridor and into a room with a scale in it. They weigh you. They drop a metal rod without warning and write down how fast your hand moves. They take blood from the thumb. Nobody explains anything because explanation is for people who might refuse. At the end of the corridor, a figure stands in a mask and does not move the entire time. Nobody looks at it. You look at it twice. The woman writes a number. She says the kindest sentence anyone has said to you in 4 years. Nobody is looking for you. She means it as reassurance. It is also the entire reason you are in this room. The Officio takes the ones with nothing behind them, because a weapon with a family is a weapon with a handle somebody else can hold. 41 of you go up the ramp. You are still humming. Here is the thing that starts today and does not stop. Somewhere behind you, a slate now records what you are. It will be right about your reflexes and your blood and your tolerance for cold. You will spend the rest of your existence finding out whether anything true about you is missing from it. And if something is missing, whether that leftover is a person, or just the part they have not needed yet. They do not call you a Progena on the shuttle. They call you a candidate. Level 2, the candidate. Terra, under the palace, at a depth nobody quotes aloud. The Officio Assassinorum is the Imperium's answer to problems that armies make worse, and it is carried on the Senatorum's ledgers between the stationery and the shrine oil. That is not a joke about the Imperium. That is the accounting. 4 years of testing, cold, pressure, dark, pain, and long stretches of doing nothing while being watched to see what nothing does to you. Then the implants. They sharpen the senses and they sharpen the resolve, which is the polite word for the part of you that would otherwise stop. The corridors down here carry no signage of any kind, not stripped signage. None was ever fitted. You learn the route by counting turns. The first thing the Officio teaches you, before a weapon, is how to be somewhere without leaving a record that you were. Here is the payoff, and it arrives early enough to keep you. Not long after the surgery, you stand in a corridor and hear the tumblers of a lock turning down the hall, one at a time, like coins dropped on cloth. You are 11. You start to understand what you are being turned into, and the understanding feels like being told a secret rather than being sold one. The test has a second half. The first half only decides who gets asked to sit the second. Of the 41, 11 remain. The Officio's own figure is roughly 1 in 10, and the Officio is not being modest. One of the ones who does not make the physical thresholds is a girl called Tessit. Her hands shake under load. They shake at rest too. She is not killed because the Officio wastes very little, and she is streamed sideways into the Vanus Temple, where the work is information and nobody is asked to carry anything heavier than a slate. She finds you the day before the streams separate. There is ink worn permanently into the side of her right hand from resting it on wet slates. She wants one thing, and it is small enough to be embarrassing. Tell me one thing about it that was not on the sheet. You tell her the assessment room smelled of burnt sugar. It is not on any sheet. She writes it down anyway. Then the 6 temples take their pick and one of them takes you. Level 3, the Callidus. The Callidus Temple works by becoming other people, using a drug called Polymorphine that rewrites bone and flesh on command, which is exactly as pleasant as that sounds. Your face stops being a fact and becomes a setting. The first dose takes 19 hours. You are conscious for 11 of them. Afterwards, you cannot hold your own face without concentrating. For a long while, your resting expression belongs to somebody else. The requisition for a polymorphine course runs to 6 pages, 2 of which are seals, and 1 of which asks you to confirm that you hold no living relatives. You already knew. You had never seen it printed. Your first sanction is a tithe official on a world you will not name again. 19 days of preparation, 4 minutes of work. He is not alone. His aide is in the room holding a data slate, wearing house colors and an expression that has not caught up yet. He was not on the order. You do him first because he is closer to the door. The Officio has language for this, and the language is older than you are. A sanction covers what the sanction requires. You say it to yourself walking out and it fits. The way a coat fits when it was cut for somebody your size. The report you file names 1 death. The count is not a lie. The count is a category. Notice which of those 2 facts you are more comfortable with. That night you send Tessit her detail. The official kept a caged bird on the desk and fed it before he read anything, every morning, without exception. That is not on any dossier. She replies within the hour, and her reply is 1 word long, and the word is, thank you. You do not send her the second thing you noticed, which is that you did not think about the aid once between the door and the shuttle. Level 4, the Operative. Now they stop giving you targets and start giving you lives. 11 years, 3 identities, 1 death at the end of each. A dock clerk on a void station, a tutor to a governor's household, a widowed logistician with a cough and a small allotment of tomatoes she is genuinely proud of. That is the work. You do not kill people. You become the thing standing next to them for 2,000 days, and then you stop. The tomatoes are the part that stays. You can still describe the smell of the leaves on your hands. You cannot describe your mother's face. The Officio would file that as an efficient allocation of memory, and the Officio would be correct. There is a category of failure the Officio does not punish, and that is the one to watch. They punish sloppiness. They punish noise. They do not punish an operative who begins to prefer the cover identity, because that operative is already producing excellent work, and because the correction is a recall order rather than a reprimand. One of the 11 from your intake is recalled for recalibration in your 9th year. There is no announcement. His designation appears on no further manifests. Later, a new operative works his sector, and nobody, anywhere, pauses. Tessit is well up the Vanus Temple by now, and her dossiers have become frightening. She sends you a targets file with a note at the bottom in her own hand. He hums when he is calculating. 4 notes, falling. You should hear it before you see him. You read that line 11 times. You had given her that detail about yourself years earlier, and she had filed it, and it had come back to you dressed as somebody else. Level 5, the Execution Force. 6 of you, 1 from each temple, 1 target, 1 window. This is where the climb stops being about surviving the Officio and starts being about agreeing with it. An execution force is assembled when a single killer is judged insufficient. It is also assembled with redundancy, and redundancy is a word that means one of the 6 is expected to be spent. Nobody tells you which. The doctrine is that you all behave better if you all assume it is you. The target is a cardinal with an army and a theology problem. The approach runs through a safe house in a habitation block, 4 floors up. A family keeps it. They have sheltered Imperial agents since before the daughter was born, and they ask nothing, because asking was trained out of the line a generation ago. They feed you. The daughter is 7 and shows you a folded paper bird. The extraction goes wrong by 90 seconds. The sanction requires that the root stays viable for the other 5. The family has seen 4 faces. A sanction covers what the sanction requires. You do it in the order that makes the least sound. Then you sit on the stairs for 2 minutes, because the timing demands it. And you notice that you are not doing anything with those 2 minutes. Not thinking, not praying, not anything. Count the people in that block who are on the sanction, then count the people in that block. Afterwards, Tessit sends a message that is not about a dossier. She asks the plain question, the one her whole temple is built to never ask. A sanction needs the High Lords to agree. Who agrees to the ones that are never written? You have no answer. You write back about the transit schedule instead, and she lets you, and you both know exactly what happened. Nobody is looking for them either. Level 6, the Instructor. The strongest survive the training and then teach it. That is not a promotion. That is what the Officio does with an operative whose face has been in too many rooms. You stop deploying. You start selecting. You are very good at it. In a hall of 300, you can pick the one who will still be breathing in 9 years, and you are right more often than the models are. 300 children a year for 22 years. 6,600 small hands with the blood taken from the thumb. By the Officio's own figure, 660 of them finish. Set that number beside the 41 who went up the ramp with you. You have signed for all of it, in your own hand, and your hand has never once slowed down. You are also now watched. The Ordo Sicarius exists to keep the Officio's blade from wandering, which means an Inquisitor reads your selections and your psycho-indoctrination results, and never once explains what would happen if they came back wrong. You catch yourself in the 4th year, walking the assessment corridor, humming 4 notes that fall. You stop. You do not start again for a long time. Tesset is a senior analyst, and her work has changed the shape of the Officio. Her models cut a standard execution force from 6 to 4, because she can now predict the failure point closely enough that the redundancy is waste. She stops asking for the detail. You notice it 3 deployments later, and when you finally ask why, she tells you the truth. Because she has never once lied to you. I have enough of them now. Then she tells you what she means. She kept every one. 40 years of things that were not on any sheet, filed under no designation, in a file that belongs to no temple, and the file is not about your targets. Burnt sugar, a caged bird, 4 notes. The file is about you, and it is the only accurate one that has ever existed. She says it the way a friend says a good thing. Level 7, the Director. They give you a temple. A director does not kill. A director decides how much killing a year costs and who pays it. You sign an expenditure of lives the way a quartermaster signs for Prometheum. The line at the bottom of the form is a number. The number is people you selected as children. The Vanus Temple has a principle they are proud of, and it is this: the cleanest kill is the one another performs in your place, with no knowledge that you moved them. Nobody is cleared to open a file that has no designation. That is why it exists. You do not issue an order. There is no order. You take one true thing about a senior Vanus analyst, a habit of retaining unfiled material, and you place it where an inquisitor of the Ordo Sicarius will find it while looking for something else. It takes you 9 minutes. You use her own temple's principle, and it works exactly as advertised, because she designed half of the models that make it work. The Ordo is thorough. It takes them 11 days. A sanction covers what the sanction requires. There was no sanction. There did not need to be one. You feel nothing at all, and the nothing is not numbness. Numbness is a sensation. This is an absence, and it has been there for a very long time, and you have simply never had a reason to check. The undesignated file is impounded, cataloged, and archived, because that is what the Ordo does with material it cannot destroy. Level 8, the Grand Master, a seat in the Senatorum Imperialis, 1 vote among the High Lords of Terra. The tradition is that the Officio deploys only with the Senate's agreement, and you now understand the tradition the way a man understands a fence he has walked around for 60 years. You audit it once because you are entitled to, and because nobody can stop you. 9 years old, a scale, a dropped rod, 41 on a ramp, 11 at the end. 1 aide who was closer to the door. A family 4 floors up. 6,600 children, signed for in your own hand. 1 analyst, killed by a principle rather than a person. Every rung took something, and every rung told you the taking was the point. And it was, and you agreed, and you would do it again with better timing. You send the brass tag to the archive for verification, because at this level you can have anything verified. It comes back with a note. Number 419 is a Schola dormitory roll number, currently assigned. There is a 9-year-old sleeping under it tonight. Then the archive delivers the other thing, because you are Grandmaster and there is nothing you are not cleared to open. 40 years of details that were never on any sheet. You read it in one sitting. It is accurate. It is warm. It is the only record of you that was ever made by somebody who wanted the leftover rather than the asset. You file it under a designation. That is the last thing you do with it. It takes 4 seconds. It makes her life's work the property of the Officio Assassinorum, which is the single outcome she spent that life preventing. Somebody asks you, at the end of a session, what the tune is that the old Grandmaster hums. You tell them you do not hum. You try to find the 4 notes that evening, and they are not there. They have not been there for a long time. Somewhere under Terra tonight, 300 children recite the Dawn Catechism, and it ends on 4 notes that fall. A hand closes on the back of a collar in the 2nd row. The voices keep going. A stylist scrapes a name off a slate while the child is still standing in the room, and nobody looks up, because the scraping sound is very small. Nobody is looking for her. She owns 3 things. She will be told, kindly, that this is her advantage. For those that defy the Imperium, only the Emperor can judge your crimes.